Carmen stared at the acceptance letter for the third time that morning, her coffee growing cold as 7-year-old Sofia bounced around the kitchen, backpack half-zipped and one shoe missing. "Mama, I can't find my other sneaker," Sofia called out, diving under the kitchen table. 29 years old, and Carmen was finally going back to school. The nursing program at the community college had accepted her application, but looking at the class schedule now, reality hit like a freight train. Clinical rotations started at 6 a.m. Her shift at the diner didn't end until midnight most nights, and Sofia found it! Sofia emerged triumphant, holding up a muddy sneaker. Carmen folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her purse alongside the stack of unpaid bills. The nursing degree would change everything: better pay, steady hours, benefits. But first, she had to survive the next 2 years. Her phone buzzed with a text from her manager. "Can you cover the lunch shift today?" Maria called out. That would make it her 6th day in a row. Carmen's thumb hovered over the phone. She needed every dollar, but she also had her first college orientation meeting this afternoon. The one she'd been looking forward to for months. "Mama, you look worried," Sofia said, now fully dressed and standing by the door with her lunchbox. Carmen knelt down to her daughter's level, smoothing down Sofia's unruly curls. "Just thinking about some big changes coming our way, mija." "Good changes or scary changes?" "Both," Carmen said honestly. "The best kind usually are." After dropping Sofia at school, Carmen drove to the community college campus for the first time as an actual student. The parking lot was full of cars much newer than her 15-year-old Honda, and she felt a familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. Most of these students probably didn't have to worry about rent money or finding childcare, or whether their car would make it through another semester. The orientation was held in a large lecture hall that smelled like industrial carpet and possibility. Carmen found a seat near the back, scanning the room. She wasn't the oldest person there, but she was definitely one of the few with car seats visible through the windows of their vehicles. "Welcome to the Riverside Community College Nursing Program," announced Dr. Patricia Hendricks, the program director. She was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Over the next 2 years, you'll be challenged in ways you never imagined. Some of you will discover strengths you didn't know you had. Others will realize this path isn't for you, and that's okay too." Carmen felt her phone vibrate with another text. Then another. She glanced down quickly, her manager again, asking if she'd gotten his earlier message. She turned the phone face down and forced herself to focus. "Nursing isn't just about medical knowledge," Dr. Hendricks continued. "It's about compassion, critical thinking, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. It's about being an advocate for people at their most vulnerable moments." Something stirred in Carmen's chest. She thought about her own mother, who had died of complications from diabetes when Carmen was 22. Too young and scared to ask the right questions, too intimidated by the medical system to advocate for better care. Maybe if there had been a nurse who looked like her mother, who understood what it meant to be afraid and poor and out of options. After orientation, Carmen lingered in the hallway, studying the bulletin board covered with job postings, scholarship opportunities, and study group announcements. A flyer caught her eye. "Single Parents in Healthcare, Support Group. Meets Wednesdays, 7 p.m., Student Center." Thinking about joining, Carmen turned to find a woman about her age, with short blonde hair and tired eyes that looked familiar. "I'm Ashley," the woman said, extending her hand. "I saw you in orientation. You have that same, 'holy shit, what have I gotten myself into?' look that I probably have." Carmen laughed despite herself. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone else who's been there. I've got twin boys, age 5. Started this program last year and barely made it through. The support group literally saved my sanity." "What's it like? The program, I mean." Ashley glanced around the hallway, then lowered her voice. "Hard. Harder than anything I've ever done. But worth it. My boys and I were living in my mom's basement 2 years ago. Now we have our own apartment. And when I graduate next spring, I'll be making 3 times what I made at the call center. Carmen's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Sofia's after-school program. Late pickup fee applies after 6 p.m. I should go, Carmen said. But maybe I'll see you at that support group? I hope so, Ashley said. We look out for each other. It makes all the difference. 3 weeks into the semester, Carmen felt like she was drowning. Her anatomy and physiology textbook lay open on the kitchen table, highlighting scattered across pages about the cardiovascular system, while Sofia worked on math homework beside her. Mama, what's 7 times 8? 56, Carmen answered automatically, not looking up from her notes about blood flow through the heart. Are you sure? Last time you said it was 64. Carmen looked up, realizing she'd been wrong both times. Sorry, baby, it's 56. I'm just tired. The truth was, she was beyond tired. She'd been awake since 4 a.m., studying before her clinical rotation at the hospital. Then, 8 hours on her feet, learning to take vital signs and change bedsheets with patients still in them. Then she'd rushed to pick up Sofia, made dinner, helped with homework, and now she was trying to memorize the pathway of blood through the heart while her daughter needed her attention. Her phone rang, the diner. Carmen, I know it's your night off, but we're slammed and Jenny just called in sick. Can you come in for just a few hours? Carmen looked at Sofia, who was struggling with her multiplication tables, then at her textbook, then at the pile of laundry that had been sitting on the couch for 3 days. I can't tonight, Jerry. I'm sorry. Come on, Carmen. You know I wouldn't ask if I didn't need you. The rent was due in 5 days, and she was $40 short. $40 that 3 hours of waitressing would cover easily. Let me see if I can find someone to watch Sofia. But her usual babysitter was busy, and her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, was at her grandson's soccer game. Carmen stared at the phone, feeling the familiar weight of impossible choices. Mama? Sofia looked up from her homework. Why do you look sad? Carmen sat down beside her daughter and pulled her close. Just trying to figure some things out, mija. Is it because of school? Are you going to quit like you did before? The question hit Carmen like a punch to the stomach. Sofia was too young to remember much about Carmen's first attempt at college, right after Sofia's father left them. She'd lasted exactly 1 semester before the stress of juggling everything became too much. No, Carmen said firmly. I'm not quitting. Sometimes grown-ups have to work really hard for the things they want, but that doesn't mean we give up. Like when I couldn't ride my bike without training wheels. Exactly like that. Carmen called Jerry back and told him she couldn't come in. Then she opened her anatomy book and helped Sofia with her math, taking turns between multiplication tables and memorizing the names of heart valves. By the time Sofia was asleep, it was nearly 10 p.m., and Carmen still had 2 chapters to read for tomorrow's quiz. She made a pot of coffee and settled in at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and the quiet hum of their old refrigerator. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. How's it going? Barely hanging on, Carmen typed back. Meet me at the library tomorrow before class. I've got some study guides that might help. I work until 6 a.m. Then meet me after. I'll bring coffee. Carmen smiled at her phone. She'd gone to the support group meeting the week before, and it had been a revelation. 10 other single parents, all juggling school and work and kids, all understanding the particular exhaustion that came with trying to build a better future while barely surviving the present. There was Marcus, a single dad with 3 daughters, working toward his respiratory therapy degree. Janet, whose ex-husband had left her with 2 boys and a mountain of debt, now in her 2nd year of the radiologic technology program. And Ashley, who'd become Carmen's unofficial study buddy and the closest thing she had to a best friend. Thank you, Carmen texted back. For what? For reminding me I'm not alone in this. None of us are. That's the point. Carmen turned back to her textbook, feeling slightly less overwhelmed. She had 8 hours until she needed to be at clinical rotation and 6 chapters to get through. She took a sip of coffee and began to read about the electrical conduction system of the heart, thinking about how appropriate it was that she was learning about things that keep beating even under pressure. November arrived with an unexpected cold snap, and a phone call that made Carmen's world tilt sideways. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Principal Martinez from Sofia's school. I need you to come pick up your daughter. She's running a fever and seems quite unwell." Carmen was in the middle of her pharmacology exam, 20 questions deep into 50, when her phone buzzed with the call. She glanced at Professor Kim, who had explicitly stated that phones should be turned off during exams. "I'm sorry, I can't talk right now," she whispered into the phone. "Ms. Rodriguez, Sofia is asking for you. Her temperature is 102.5 degrees. Carmen's heart stopped. She looked at her exam paper, then at the clock on the wall. She'd studied for this test for 2 weeks, and makeup exams were only allowed for documented emergencies. "I'll be right there," she said. Professor Kim looked up sharply as Carmen gathered her things. "Ms. Rodriguez, you have 30 minutes left on the exam. My daughter is sick. I have to go. If you leave now, you'll need to schedule a makeup exam and provide documentation that this constitutes a family emergency." Carmen paused at the door. She needed this grade. She was already struggling in pharmacology, and failing this exam would put her in serious jeopardy of failing the course altogether. "I understand," she said, and left. Sofia was curled up in the nurse's office, her usually vibrant personality dimmed by fever and exhaustion. Carmen's maternal instincts kicked in immediately, all thoughts of the exam fading as she felt her daughter's burning forehead. "Mama," Sofia whispered, "I don't feel good." "I know, baby. Let's get you home." The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of fever, vomiting, and sleepless nights. Sofia had come down with the flu that was making its way through her school, and Carmen barely left her side. She missed 2 clinical rotations, another exam, and 3 shifts at the diner. By the 4th day, when Sofia's fever finally broke, Carmen felt like she was emerging from a war zone. She had 14 missed calls from Jerry at the diner, 6 emails from her professors, and a voicemail from her landlord about the rent being late. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring at her laptop screen. She had makeup exams to schedule, clinical hours to make up, and rent money to figure out. The math was stark and unforgiving. Missing work meant missing pay, and missing pay meant falling behind on everything else. Her phone rang. "Ashley." "I heard you've been MIA. Everything okay?" Carmen found herself crying as she explained about Sofia's illness and everything that had piled up in its wake. "Okay, first things first," Ashley said, her voice taking on the practical tone Carmen had come to rely on. "Sofia's better, right? Good. Second, I already talked to Professor Kim about getting you the notes from the classes you missed. Third, Janet from the support group works in financial aid. She thinks there might be some emergency funding available for situations like this. Ashley, I can't..." "You can't what?" "Accept help? Carmen, we've all been there. Marcus had to take his youngest to the ER last month and missed a week of classes. The whole group pitched in to help him catch up. This is what we do. I don't know how I'll ever pay anyone back. You pay it forward. When one of us is drowning, the others throw a rope. It's not charity, it's survival." That evening, Carmen's small apartment filled with an unlikely study group. Ashley brought dinner and her pharmacology notes. Marcus showed up with his laptop and offered to help Carmen catch up on the online modules she'd missed. Janet arrived with information about emergency student loans and a grocery bag full of Sofia's favorite soup. "Mama?" Sofia said, peeking out from her bedroom where she was supposed to be resting. "Why are all these people here?" "They're my friends from school," Carmen said. "They came to help." "Like when I helped Lucia with her reading?" "Exactly like that." Sofia smiled and disappeared back into her room, leaving Carmen surrounded by textbooks, laptops, and people who understood what it meant to rebuild your life one impossible day at a time. "Okay," Ashley said, opening her pharmacology textbook. "Let's talk about drug classifications. You've got a makeup exam Monday, and we're going to make sure you're ready." Carmen looked around her kitchen table, now covered with study materials and the remnants of shared dinner, and felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. The certainty that she wasn't facing this alone. Spring semester brought new challenges and unexpected victories. Carmen had passed all her fall classes, barely, but enough to continue in the program. She'd also been approved for the emergency student loan Janet had helped her apply for, which meant she could reduce her hours at the diner from 6 days a week to 4. The extra time made an enormous difference. She could actually read assignments before class, instead of trying to catch up afterward. She could attend study groups without falling asleep. Most importantly, she could be present for Sofia in the evenings, helping with homework and hearing about her day. "Mama, guess what happened at school today?" Sofia said one afternoon as they walked home from the bus stop. "What's that, mija?" "Mrs. Patterson asked us to write about our hero, and I wrote about you." Carmen stopped walking. "About me?" "Yeah. I wrote about how you work really hard and go to school and take care of me, and how you're going to be a nurse and help sick people get better." Sofia swung Carmen's hand as they death. "Mrs. Patterson said it was really good. She wants to know if you can come to Career Day, which next month means that." Carmen felt tears prick her eyes. "I'd love to come to Career Day. Will you wear your scrubs, the blue ones?" "If you want me to." That evening, Carmen sat at her desk in the corner of the living room. Sofia had insisted she needed a proper study space, so they'd moved Carmen's textbooks and laptop out of the kitchen, working through practice problems for her critical care nursing course. It was the hardest class in the program, focusing on patients in intensive care units, and Carmen was struggling with the complexity of managing multiple medications and— "Your clinical instructor at St. Mary's mentioned that you spent your lunch break sitting with an elderly patient who is frightened about her upcoming surgery. You explained the procedure in terms she could understand and stayed with her until her family arrived." Carmen remembered Mrs. Chen, who had reminded her so much of her own grandmother. "He just needed someone to listen." "Exactly. And your instructor at the Children's Hospital noted that you have a gift for working with pediatric patients. You helped calm a 7-year-old who was afraid of getting an IV. I have a 7-year-old at home. I know what works." Dr. Hendricks smiled. "That's exactly my point. Your life experience, the challenges you've faced, the way you've had to be strong for your daughter, all of that makes you a better nurse, not despite your circumstances, but because of them." Carmen felt something shift inside her chest. "I don't understand. Are you saying I'm doing well?" "I'm saying you're exactly the kind of nurse our healthcare system needs. Someone who understands what it means to be vulnerable, to be afraid, to feel like the system is working against you instead of for you." Dr. Hendricks leaned forward. "I have a proposition for you. There's a scholarship available for students who demonstrate exceptional compassion and dedication. It would cover your tuition for the remainder of the program and provide a stipend for living expenses." Carmen stared at her, unable to process what she was hearing. A scholarship? The Patricia Morrison Scholarship for Outstanding Nursing Students. It's awarded to one student each year who embodies the values of compassionate care and perseverance in the face of adversity. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. Say you'll continue to be the kind of nurse who sees patients as whole people, not just medical problems to solve." Carmen walked out of Dr. Hendricks' office in a daze. She sat in her car in the parking lot and called Ashley. "You got the scholarship?" Ashley screamed so loudly that Carmen had to hold the phone away from her ear. "Carmen, do you know what this means? It means I won't have to choose between rent money and textbooks anymore. It means you're going to be an amazing nurse. It means all of this, all the late nights and stress and juggling. It was worth it." Carmen picked up Sofia from after-school care and took her out for ice cream to celebrate, explaining as best she could to a 7-year-old what the scholarship meant. "So you don't have to work at the restaurant as much?" Sofia asked, chocolate chip ice cream smeared on her chin. "That's right. And you can help me with my homework more?" "Much more." Sofia grinned. "I told you that you were a hero." Carmen's last semester of nursing school arrived with the weight of everything she'd worked toward. Clinical rotations were more intensive now, preparing students for the reality of working as registered nurses. She was assigned to the cardiac ICU at the county hospital, the same place where her mother had died 7 years earlier. Walking through those halls for the first time in her scrubs, Carmen felt the ghosts of old helplessness and new purpose colliding. She thought about the young woman she'd been then, too intimidated to ask questions, too overwhelmed to advocate for better care. Now, she was learning to be the person she'd needed then. "Rodriguez, you're with me today," said Janet Walsh, the charge nurse. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and eyes that had seen everything. "We've got a full unit, and I hear you're good with families." Carmen's first patient was Maria Santos, a woman about her mother's age who'd had a massive heart attack. Her family filled the small ICU room, children, grandchildren, everyone, talking at once in rapid Spanish, their fear palpable. "The doctors keep using words we don't understand," Maria's daughter told Carmen in Spanish. "They say she needs surgery, but they won't explain what kind or why." Carmen spent the next hour translating medical terminology, explaining procedures, and helping the family understand their mother's condition and treatment options. She showed them how to read the monitors, what each medication was for, and most importantly, how they could help their mother feel less afraid. "You're not just a nursing student, are you?" Maria's son asked as Carmen checked his mother's vital signs. "You understand what this is like. My mother died in this hospital 7 years ago," Carmen said quietly. "I didn't know enough then to ask the right questions or fight for what she needed. I became a nurse so other families wouldn't have to go through that." Word spread quickly among the ICU staff about the nursing student who could bridge the gap between medical jargon and family fears. Carmen found herself interpreting not just language, but culture, helping doctors understand why certain families made decisions that seemed irrational from a medical standpoint, and helping families navigate a healthcare system that often felt designed to exclude them. "You have a gift," Janet told her at the end of her first week. "You see the whole picture, not just the patient, but the family, the community, the barriers they're facing. That's what makes a great nurse." With 2 months left in the program, Carmen received news that made her future feel suddenly real. She'd been offered a position in the cardiac ICU, where she'd been doing her clinical rotation. The job would start immediately after graduation, with a salary that would allow her to move Sofia to a better school district and maybe even save for college. "Mama, are you crying?" Sofia asked, finding Carmen staring at the job offer letter at their kitchen table. "Happy tears, mija. These are very happy tears. Does this mean we're going to be okay?" Carmen pulled her daughter onto her lap, thinking about all the times Sofia had heard her mother, "On mich ishaper, kryplonin t." "We're going to be more than okay, and you know what the best part is?" "What?" "I'm going to be able to help other people the way I wished someone could have helped us." The final weeks of nursing school blurred together in a haze of comprehensive exams, final clinical rotations, and preparation for the NCLEX licensing exam. Carmen's study group had evolved into something more like a family, with Marcus, Ashley, Janet, and several others gathering regularly to quiz each other and provide moral support. "I can't believe we're almost done," Ashley said one evening as they packed up their textbooks after a marathon study session. "Remember that first day of orientation when we all looked terrified?" "I'm still terrified," Marcus admitted. "But it's a different kind of scared now. Good scared. Scared we might actually pull this off," Carmen said. "Scared we might actually get to save some lives," Janet added. Graduation day dawned bright and clear, with the kind of spring warmth that felt like a promise. Carmen stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the cap and gown that represented 2 years of 18-hour days, missed meals, and the constant juggling of responsibilities that had often felt impossible. "Mama, you look beautiful," Sofia said from the doorway, dressed in her favorite dress for the ceremony. "Thank you, baby. Are you excited to see Mama graduate?" "I'm proud of you," Sofia said with the seriousness that sometimes surprised Carmen. "I know it was really hard." The graduation ceremony was held in the college's main auditorium, packed with families and friends celebrating achievements that represented far more than completed coursework. Carmen's support group sat together in the audience: Marcus's 3 daughters, Ashley's twin boys, Janet's extended family, and Sofia, clutching a bouquet of carnations she'd insisted on buying with her allowance money. When Dr. Hendricks called Carmen's name, she walked across the stage on legs that felt surprisingly steady. As she shook hands and received her diploma, she thought about her mother, who would have been so proud, and about all the patients she would have the privilege to care for. "Carmen Rodriguez, Doctor," Hendricks said, her voice carrying across the auditorium, recipient of the Patricia Morrison Scholarship for Outstanding Nursing Students. The applause was thunderous, but all Carmen could hear was Sofia shouting, "That's my mama!" from the audience. After the ceremony, Carmen's small celebration group gathered at a nearby restaurant. Sofia sat between Carmen and Ashley, carefully examining Carmen's diploma and asking questions about what all the words meant. "So you're really a nurse now?" Sofia asked. "Almost. I have to pass one more big test, but yes, I'm really a nurse now." "And you're going to help sick people get better?" "That's the plan." Marcus raised his glass of iced tea. To the class that refused to give up, even when everything seemed impossible. "To proving that single parents can do anything," Ashley added. "To rewriting the story we thought was already written," Carmen said, thinking about the scared 29-year-old who had opened that acceptance letter 2 years ago, wondering if she was crazy to think she could juggle everything. 3 weeks later, Carmen received the call she'd been waiting for. She'd passed the NCLEX exam. She was officially a registered nurse. That afternoon, she started her first shift in the cardiac ICU, wearing scrubs that finally felt like they belonged to her. Her first patient was a young mother, about Carmen's age, who'd collapsed at her daughter's soccer game. The woman's husband paced the hallway, their 2 children clinging to him, all of them scared and overwhelmed by the medical equipment and urgent conversations happening around them. "I don't understand what's happening," the husband said when Carmen introduced herself. "They keep saying she needs surgery, but no one explains what that means, or if she's going to be okay." Carmen pulled up a chair and sat down at eye level with the family. "Let me explain what we know so far," she said, her voice calm and steady. "And then we'll talk about what questions you should ask the doctors." As she translated medical terminology into understandable language, helped the children understand why Mommy had so many wires attached to her, and showed the husband how to read the monitors so he'd feel less helpless, Carmen realized that everything she'd been through, the struggle, the exhaustion, the moments when giving up seemed like the only rational choice, had led her exactly where she needed to be. Later that evening, as Carmen drove home through the city lights, she thought about the conversation she'd had with Sofia that morning. "Mama, do you remember when you used to cry at the kitchen table when you thought I was asleep?" Carmen had been surprised by the question. "You remember that?" "I remember being scared that you were sad all the time, but you're not sad anymore." "No, mija, I'm not sad anymore." "Because you're a nurse now?" "Because we figured out how to build the life we wanted, even when it seemed impossible." As Carmen pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, the same complex they'd lived in when she started nursing school, but now by choice rather than necessity, she felt the deep satisfaction that comes from keeping a promise to yourself and your child. Inside, Sofia was at the kitchen table, working on homework, just like so many evenings before. But now, Carmen could help without the distraction of her own textbooks, could be fully present for multiplication tables and book reports and bedtime stories. "How was your first day as a real nurse?" Sofia asked. Perfect, Carmen said, and meant it. Absolutely perfect. She looked around their small apartment, at the kitchen table where she'd studied for countless exams, at the corner where she'd set up her makeshift desk, at the living room where her study group had gathered to help each other through the hardest parts. Soon they'd be moving to a better place, but she'd always be grateful for this space where they'd learned that impossible things become possible when you refuse to give up. Carmen Rodriguez had gone back to school as a single mother working 6 days a week, terrified that she was too old, too tired, too overwhelmed to succeed. She graduated as a registered nurse with a job she loved, a daughter who knew that dreams were worth fighting for, and the unshakable knowledge that the hardest paths often lead to the most meaningful destinations. Against all odds, she had rewritten their story, and in doing so, she'd discovered that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined possible.